Are you tired of looking up warframe builds just to find nothing but complex late-game guides requiring a bloated amount of resources and game systems that trigger the hell out of you because you don't have that yet? Do you just want some simple builds that will do the majority of content in the game, including Steel Path, and maybe more? Maybe you just want to know what a Vault can do and how to play to his strengths. This is Vault, and this is the build I am using in the Steel Path gameplay you are seeing. These builds are focused around simplicity and newer players, but there will be more advanced builds towards the end. Vault is one of the starter frames, a popular pick for his versatility, and is the best starter frame in my opinion. Good damage, good survivability, good CC, and good utility. A jack of all trades. Vault makes a fantastic weapons platform, but can also nuke, speedrun, and lock areas down with his crowd control ability. He can destroy the majority of content in the game, is fun and engaging to play. The best starter frame. Let's go over his kit quickly and what stats affect his abilities. Passive. Up to 1000 bonus electric damage based on distance travelled. Not much to talk about here, it's whatever. Moving on. Shock. Vault throws out an arc of electric that hits and stuns an enemy, then chains to up to 5 other enemies. It can only stun up to 6 enemies per cast, but it's good in a pinch to stun something you really don't want shooting at you, like a bombard. Otherwise, we won't be using this ability all that much unless we are using the augment. More on that later. Range increases the chain link range between enemies, strength increases the damage, efficiency makes it cheaper to cast. Speed. Increase reload speed, movement speed, and melee attack speed for yourself and allies. It's multiplicative of other movement speed modifiers such as sprint mods. Power strength affects the reload and movement speed modifier. Range increases the range of which allies can be hit by the ability. And duration increases the duration. Pretty simple. As a note, if you are in a team with a Vault and don't want the speed buff, you can backflip to opt out. It's a fun ability and comes in handy for speedrunning, to reposition, or to annoy public lobbies that hate going fast. Really nice on weapons with long reloads too. Electric Shield. Vault puts up a shield that blocks all incoming fire except for weapons that have punch through and AoE attacks such as Heavy Gunner's AoE knockdown. Vault can put down a maximum of 6 shields, and importantly, he can pick one up to be used as a mobile frontal shield, which can ragdoll enemies if ran into while sprinting. Fun! Shots fired through the shield by Vault or his allies gain a 50% electricity damage bonus. Multiple shields placed down can stack this damage up additively. For example, firing through 3 shields will grant a 150% electricity damage bonus. What the tooltip doesn't tell you is that the shield also grants a 100% critical multiplier. The electric damage is additive and not too important here, but the crit damage applies after weapon mods and effectively doubles your crit damage. Juicy. This ability is only affected by efficiency and duration. This is going to be a key component to your damage and survivability. Just to be clear, power strength does nothing for this ability or the crit multiplier. Discharge sends out an electric pulse in an area around Vault that goes through walls and objects, stun locks and damages enemies. Enemies also emit arcs of electric that damage other enemies within range. Against a few targets, this is not too impressive, but when you get a clump of enemies together, the damage is respectable. It's got a slow cast time and leaves you very vulnerable at the beginning of the cast. It's just a nice AoE ability that also has a decent augment, more on that later. Damage is affected by power strength, range affects the range of the ability, and the electric arc range between mobs. Duration extends the stun period while also technically increasing the damage done due to damage over time. Well, that's out of the way, let's go straight into the first build. Very minimalistic, very new player friendly, easy to obtain mods, a crappy sentinel, no arcanes, little energy sustain, and we don't even have every mod slot filled. I'm going to be using a fairly popular weapon with the Ignis Wraith, which can be acquired at Mastery Rank 9. This weapon can be obtained through the clan dojo. Yes, it's a clan thing, but by the time you start hitting Steel Path, you should really be in a clan as there are just too many benefits you miss out on by not being in one, like Dragon Keys. For our secondary, we shall be using the vanilla Nucore for a bit of priming here and there as needed. Doesn't really matter too much. This is also a clan tech weapon. Plenty of guides out there on priming, so won't be touching on that much here. For our melee, I'm rocking the Zorus, an absolute beast and 100% banned by the Geneva Conventions. This weapon can be acquired nice and early at Mastery Rank 4 by simply playing through the Deadlock Protocol quest. It is a clutch weapon. Overall though, ranged crit weapons are going to be your bread and butter thanks to that big critical damage increase from the shield. You definitely want to be rocking weapons with high crit chance. As you can see, we are killing things on Steel Path rather nicely, even with a somewhat mediocre setup. Your main issue is probably going to be Eximus units. Let me show you how to deal with them quickly. You can knock off their overshield and execute them. You'll notice a little golden doohickey on their health bar. Once you get their health down to that point, they become vulnerable to mercy kills, which will end their existence with extreme prejudice. Bonus tip, impact procs reduces the threshold for mercy kills, and the Zoris forces an impact proc when thrown. Now with such a minimalistic build, you may be finding yourself struggling, so here are some general tips on how to get the most out of Vault with some gameplay to back it up. 1. Use your shield all the time. Place it, carry it. Stack them up for the electricity damage increase if you have the energy. Put one behind you to protect your flank. Use it to knock down some punks. When utilizing Vault's shield effectively, your survivability increases massively while also buffing your damage. 2. Choke points. The shield has a limited arc of protection, so making sure the mobs are in front of you and not on your flanks means you block more incoming damage with the shield. 3. Reposition with speed. Utilize speed to catapult yourself past a bad situation and to a better vantage point. It's also great for rushing to life support or down teammates. 4. Use discharge when you feel you are being overwhelmed. This will lock down most mobs, gives you a window to reposition, or gives you a chance to lay down the hurt and focus on Eximus or the Acolyte while everything else is stunned. Survivability is pretty decent with Vault overall, and that's 10 minutes of Steel Path survival in the bag. No deaths, no problems thus far. Now, maybe you have a little bit more pep in your arsenal. Some rare mods, some arcanes, some augments, a helmet, and a somewhat leveled focus school. The focus school I would always recommend for newer players is Zenuric, as energy sustain in the early to mid game can be a pain. The 3 new mods in this build to note is Adaptation, Shock Trooper, and Capacitance. Adaptation is acquired through arbitration rewards or through trading with other players. Arbitrations are relatively easier than Steel Path, and this mod is fantastic for many warframe builds. Adaptation increases damage resistance to the type of damage you are taking, up to a maximum of 90% damage reduction. The best part is you can put on a lower rank adaptation to keep the build cost down, and it will still remain very effective at getting you up to that 90% damage reduction. Shock Trooper is an augment for Vault's first ability that grants 100% bonus electricity damage to your weapon attacks for yourself and teammates within range of the ability. This damage is affected by power strength, and it acts like a mod for your weapons, which means it will combine with elements on your weapon where applicable. For example, if you have no elemental damage on your weapon or no element for it to combine with, it will just apply the electricity damage. However, if you have heat elemental damage on your weapon, it will combine with that heat element to create radiation. It's worth keeping in mind. It's a fantastic augment for squeezing out a bit more damage on your weapons. This augment can be acquired by attaining the rank of Maxim under the Arbiters of Hexis or the rank of Exalted under the Red Veil, and spending 25,000 standing to purchase. It can also be traded for from other players. Capacitance is an augment mod for Vault's 4th ability, Discharge. This mod generates shields and overshield for yourself and allies within range based on the percentage of damage dealt by discharge. This is very good for Vault's survivability, especially when paired with Adaptation, giving us up to 90% damage reduction on those shields. Warframe shields already have an innate negative 50% damage type modifier to all sources of damage, so more damage reduction, yes please. Now your discharge can CC, deal damage, and restore shields for yourself and nearby teammates. Awesome. Capacitance can be acquired in the same way as Shock Trooper from the same syndicates. The focus school is going to be Zenuric. You're going to want Energy Pulse and Wellspring. Energy Pulse is going to grant additional energy over time when you pick up an energy orb, and Wellspring is going to regenerate energy over time when casting the ability with your operator. If you have the focus, you could also pick up Inner Might, which is basically a free ability cast every minute. You unlock your focus trees by progressing through the main quest in the game. For the helmet, if you have it unlocked from Sun on Deimos, or from the market, you can use whatever you want. I'm using Rhino's Roar, as Rhino is a nice early frame to farm, and his helmet ability is Evergreen and a really useful damage buffing ability. Stepping up the difficulty here at the Kuva Fortress. And I'm also using the same mod setup on the weapons as before, although I did swap out the viral for corrosive on the Ignis because I did not want the electric from Shock Trooper to combine with the heat from the Ignis. Now it just strengthens the corrosive damage. Nice. We're using Shock Trooper and Raw to buff damage while using Capacitance to regain shields. Adaptation is giving us that damage reduction, and Generic is giving us energy regen as before. Fantastic. Not too shabby for a mid build. Volt's versatility really lets you slap on almost whatever you want and still do well. But what if you wanted more out of Volt? What if you had all the shiny things and wanted to annihilate everything? Enter late game Volt. I'm a simple man and I like simple things, including simple builds I can rely on. On this build, I swapped out Shock for Nourish. You get that viral damage, and with Energy Nexus you get good energy sustain. I've retained Capacitance for that survivability and added Arcane Aegis, which provides a 3% chance upon taking damage to your shields to start regenerating said shields. It's very powerful, even at lower ranks, and a staple for almost any shield tanking build. The other Arcane can be whatever you want. I'd recommend Arcane Rage, Multi-Augmented, or Arcane Avenger. Speaking of Arcane Avenger, you can turn any weapon into a crit viable weapon with that Arcane, allowing you to still take advantage of Volt Shield crit damage multiplier, though it's usually best to just stick to crit weapons. Let's combine this build with a juiced up Ignis Wraith. Pretty simple setup using Serration instead of galvanized Aptitude. Aptitude would be better, especially when combined with priming weapons, sentinels or companions, but I like Serration for its simplicity and instant damage increase with no prerequisites. Adjust the elements to fit the type of mods you are up against. I'm using Hammer Shot here, but you can use another element, Vigilante Supplies, Bladed Rounds, Heavy Caliber, more fire rates, whatever you want. Here we are in late game against level 200 plus mobs, and they are melting. Thanks to the combination of good mods, Nourish, and Electric Shield, everything is getting cooked. Extra crispy. Lovely. What if we used one of the strongest primaries in the game? Yeah. If you wanted more of a gun platform, you can put a damage buff like Raw over his 4th ability and use Shock Trooper. Works similar to the first build, but we have sacrificed some crowd control and defense for an additional damage buffing ability. Yes, you could also subsume over speed instead. We are also using Equilibrium in combination with our Sentinel to get big energy returns. If you want to turn Volt into a nuke, you can with something similar to this. Slap on a large radius armor strip like Terrify and go nuts. Want a more balanced build for versatility? There you go. Volt is truly a powerhouse of a frame, and if this was a review video he would be getting an A. His versatility allows for a great deal of build variety and weapon choice, making him my absolute favourite starter warframe. That is it for this video. Thank you for watching and have a good one. I can